There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
Edition number 207 of the soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by my friends at Beans Coffee Company. You know the drill. Promo code Sports Chat at coffeebybeans.com will save you some cash on delicious small batch roasted coffee. Doogie, I may need a new intro here pretty soon because we're going to have the NBA champions. Per Twitter yesterday, we're going to have Drake May. Your Minnesota Twins are going to win the division again. I don't know what to think about the Minnesota Wild, but there's going to be a lot of new stuff to insert into that open.
It is fun times, Ross. Thank you for welcoming me back to your podcast episode. What is it, 208? Seven?
Unofficially, I might be off by one.
They haven't kicked you out of the studio yet, huh?
No, well, they can't kick me out if I time it when they're not here.
Oh,
that's the way to do it, Dukes. That's the way to do it.
I like it. Now, you had me thinking. So you're like, okay, the Wolves win the championship, so that's June. I'm still trying to figure out, will it be Glenn Taylor hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy? Or will it be Alex Rodriguez and Mark Laurie? How about a little scoop for you to start this?
Okay, great.
Because the next time I do one of these, it's with Phil Mackey, Judd Zolgad, Reckless Speculation Thursday, on, hey, February 29th. How lucky are we, Ross? February 29th this year.
We get an extra day. I'll let the listeners decide if they feel lucky or not by having an extra day.
So we're chatting here on Wednesday night, February 28th. Happy Hump Day, by the way.
Thank you. Same to you.
So I sent Glenn Taylor a message today. Missed his call. My phone was on silent, stupidly. And he left me a voicemail, though. I was trying to get clarity. So there is another deadline on Thursday, February 29th. Well, guess what?
How many deadlines are there?
There's been way too many. This has been a wonky process. I mean, heck, you could argue. I mean, we go all the way back to, April of 2021. So over the course of darn near 3 years, there are going to be bumps in the road. How would there not be with that length of time? But yes, this specifically, it's been a wild ride. I still think we get to the finish line with Mark and Alex eventually becoming majority owners. But we need to push back yet another deadline. So they were supposed to meet, Mark and Alex, a deadline here on Thursday, February 29th. But Glenn Taylor, in a voicemail that he left me, said, hey, I don't know when we'll get it done, but it's not going to be on Thursday.
So dumb question here, Doogie. And I've been thinking about this, and I don't know necessarily how to phrase it. And I also really don't think it's an issue because we would have heard this by now, or other people would have talked about it. And maybe you have done some digging or you've talked about this and I just haven't heard it. So apologies if you have. But as a Timberwolves fan with new ownership coming in, there, of course, is a payroll that they can, a max, but then they can hit those thresholds. But in a roundabout way, if it's this hard for them to come up with the money to buy the team, do we need to be worried about having cash poor owners even though they're rich? Does that make sense?
Well,
this seems like a pretty damn big struggle.
Your inquiry on the surface makes sense. What you need to know, what the listeners need to know, is you can have up to 25 limited partners.
Yes. Yep.
So really, in the end, the percentage that Mark and Alex actually own of the Wolves, we're not talking 51% ownership.
Correct. They're just going to have the biggest chunk of ownership.
Well,
okay.
I'm
maybe
not quite sure.
Maybe not. Okay.
They may have somebody that invests even more than they do, but is a silent partner. That there's so much money to be made in NBA ownership. You think about this next national television deal, I think there's a decent chance to good chance to maybe even great chance. 5 to 10 years from now, Las Vegas, Seattle, expansion teams, maybe some other city. I think 2, but maybe it's not Vegas and Seattle. Maybe it's Vegas and Louisville, or Vegas and you name another city, Nashville. All right. But I think there will be 2 expansion teams. To me, I would bet on Vegas and Seattle. Think about the money, right, that will come in. Expansion fees, right? There is so much money to be made as an NBA owner that they will have some silent partners. We may not know who they are. We'll know some. In fact, some of the names are out there even right now. I've mentioned 1 or 2 along the way, going back the last 18 months or so. And it doesn't really matter. Like, if you're a fan, all you care about is, okay, sustainability, right, of the franchise here in Minnesota. What will that look like? We know that Mark and Alex are going to fight for a new arena. What does that process look like? And yes, ultimately, are they willing to invest? And to me, Ross, when you're knocking on the door of a championship, so let's see how the next 4 months play out. But if we're talking about the Wolves winning multiple rounds, the Wolves getting to the Final Four in the NBA, which means the Wolves get to the Western Conference Finals, you can't then blow this thing up. So yes, we're talking about exceeding the luxury tax, exceeding the first apron, the second apron, which handcuffs you. But guess what? The core is in place. Like, the idea when they traded for Monte Morris was, hey, pending free agent, but we want Morris here beyond this year. There was talk going back to training camp, media day. Hey, yes, Mike Conley Jr. entering the final year of his contract, but hey, we see him here beyond this year. Well, guess what? During the All-Star break, they reach agreement on a 2-year extension. Even potentially Kyle Anderson, right? Do you work out a deal there? Keep him around. But if you don't, you think there's a chance that Leonard Miller, Josh Minott, those 2 guys in particular, but maybe even a Wendell Moore Jr., elevating his play to become a role-type guy. But certainly Leonard Miller, Josh Minott, that one of those guys can eat some of these Kyle Anderson minutes, that you have your core in place, that you don't trade Karl Anthony Towns. So that's the idea. Now, if the Wolves lose in the first round, right, it's matchups based. Like, okay, let's say the Wolves are the 1 seed. Are you positive, Ross, right now, as we sit here on Wednesday night, February 28th, are you positive if the Dallas Mavericks are the 8 seed? Or you know what? The New Orleans Pelicans are the 8 seed. Are you positive the 1 seed Wolves beat the 8 seed New Orleans Pelicans?
So this is why we work so well together, Doogie. And by the way, if people haven't figured it out, this is Darren Doogie Wolfson, KSTP Channel 5, SKOR North Zone. I'm going to pull a Doogie. You know, sometimes you'll take out your phone, you'll show it to me, and you'll say, look at this text.
Yeah, well,
right? Look at point number 1.
I'll try to be
Wolves.
mesmerized by that, but I'm mesmerized that we have a newspaper in this building.
Well, it's Suches, right?
Downstairs
he
in the TV newsroom.
newspaper.
I haven't seen one of these in ages. It's amazing.
The question that I have for Wolves that I
Thank
wanted
you,
to
Joe
ask
Suchere.
you. Okay?
That's why this is the Taj Mahal of podcast studios.
Yeah, you can get everything.
There's a physical newspaper in here.
Yeah.
The only one in the entire Hubbard Broadcasting building. Here it is.
I think you can find a stone and a chisel here, too, that you can leave him a note on.
But yeah, show me what you got.
Yeah, question number 1 for you under the Wolves says, more beneficial to be number 1 seed or more beneficial to get a team in the first round, maybe as the 2 or 3 seed, you feel you'd breeze past, versus maybe getting the Pelicans or one of the load management champions such as the Lakers or the Warriors. I happen to actually believe, Doogie, I think the Timberwolves would probably be more than just fine taking on Golden State.
Amen.
Or LA.
They match up fine. Golden State doesn't have the size. To me, does Curry will the Warriors to 1 win in that best of 7? Sure. To me, the Wolves beat the Warriors in 5 games. I really believe that.
But to your point, if you're sitting at the 1 seed, it's tough now with the play-in tournament. But yeah, I think if you're the Wolves, I don't think you'd be super happy if the 8 seed was the Pelicans. I think you'd rather see somebody I just named. So are the Wolves so good? Jim Peterson on Flagrant Howls basically said, this team can go to the finals. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if they can go to the finals.
But they can also lose in the first round?
Correct. But if they can go to the finals, do you really need to be worried about who you're playing? Because this isn't like the old days. You can't look at who slotted 8 and say, oh boy, we're tied. If we actually lose tonight, we can fall to 2, and that might be better for us. With the play-in and all that stuff, now you don't necessarily know who you're getting.
Yes, although you'll have many days to prepare.
Sure.
You'll put together multiple game plans, right? Yeah, I mean, we may not know. Let's say the Wolves are the 1. So you need to let the 7 play the 8. That winner is the 7. Then the 8 plays the winner of the 9-10,
Yep.
which could be Thursday with game one on Sunday. So you'd have like 72-ish hours to really lock in, but they'll lock in even before that. They'll have all these contingency plans. They'll be ready to go for a game one. Plus, keep in mind, the first round of the playoffs, we could be talking about game one on a Sunday, game two on Thursday.
Yeah.
Or it could be Saturday, game one, game two on Wednesday. There is massive separation between games in the first round of the playoffs. So you have all sorts of time to make adjustments, to prepare. But to answer your question, to me, it's matchup. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather be the 2 if you're telling me you're playing Sacramento or Golden State compared to being the 1 if New Orleans is the 8.
What if you're old like me and you hate staying up late and don't want to watch playoff games till 12:30?
Then you're screwed. Because, yeah, I mean, think about it. Wolves-Bucks on Friday. What time did that game start?
9 o'clock.
Game 2 of a national doubleheader, right? 9:15 Central Time for that tip-off.
I'm screwed.
We may
no
not be
matter
looking
what.
at 9:15, but we're talking about 8:45-ish tip-offs for the Wolves playoff games, certainly the home playoff games. Now, they come back to what I just said, Ross. The Wolves are really, really good at home.
Yep.
The Target Center is a legit home court advantage. But like you mentioned, the Lakers. I'm sure you've seen the numbers. The amount of free throws they shoot based on the amount of times they drive to the basket.
Some would say it's a rigged system, Doogie.
Yeah, well, the evidence suggests something is fishy. I mean, they shoot so many free throws for a team that in terms of driving the ball to the basket, they're middle or below middle of the pack. And it's like, okay, how are you getting all these whistles? How are you shooting all these free throws? So could you imagine Wolves-Lakers in the first round of the playoffs? How often we'll see LeBron and company at the free throw line?
Yeah, I would just, honestly, I have nothing against LeBron necessarily as the player. I just don't ever need to see him play another basketball game. I know that that's probably mean and not a great take for somebody who does appreciate basketball, but I've seen it for 20 years. I don't need to see another minute of it.
Oh, I want to keep seeing it.
Yeah,
I do.
I don't.
To do what he can do at that age.
I'm not diminishing it. I'm just bored of it.
Yeah.
And my buddies and I talk about this, Doogie. Do you know what drives me even more crazy? It's LeBron fatigue. I'm already blanking, but it'll be something stupid like ESPN will do this. They're showing like highlights of the bleeping Daytona 500. Then they'll be like, here's what LeBron tweeted about the Daytona. I don't give a flying bleep. I don't care about all that stuff. That's what I'm going off on a separate tangent, but that's why LeBron drives me crazy.
Which is fine.
It's
so,
LeBron
you know
fatigue.
what? Then go Wolves. But here's the thing, too. Like, okay, I think the top 4 is pretty much set in stone. Not the order, but it's set in stone. By the way, I think the Wolves match up better against OKC, Denver, and the Clippers than they do against teams 5 through 9-ish, 10-ish. Golden State, to me, is an ideal matchup for the Wolves, just based on the lack of size. But like we saw what Sacramento did here a couple months ago. Sacramento again on Friday. I still think the Wolves would beat the Kings in a best of 7, but like Sacramento ran the same play 17 times in the second half because it kept working.
Do you think
that's a tricky matchup? Phoenix, do you want to play Phoenix in the first round? I'm telling you, Dallas. Like, don't look at the Wolves-Mavs games from this year because guess what? Luka was out. Kyrie was out. They just had P.J. Washington. They had Daniel Gafford. I think Dallas is a lot better than they were 2 months ago.
Do you think some of the matchup stuff that you're talking about, like I get it, you're talking like legit matchups on the floor and how teams and players match up with each other. But do you think some of looking at the teams that the Wolves are going to play that are somewhere between 5 and 10 right now, do you think some of looking at those teams and thinking, boy, there's actually more problems with those teams than the upper half of the West, just because over the last few years with the Minnesota Timberwolves, they've actually struggled with those teams more than the teams that are in the upper half? Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I really don't, actually.
So what I'm getting at is it's possible to me that when the games, I think the Wolves have an issue with, do the games really matter when they're playing some of these teams? And then it comes back and it bites them in the you-know-what because they're not ready to play a team that has a record that's a lot worse than them. So what I'm saying is when you meet one of those teams in the playoffs, maybe even the Pelicans, are the Wolves going to bring it a little bit more and maybe...
Well, they'll bring it if it's the Pelicans, right?
At the end of the day...
After what the Pelicans did at Target Center a couple weeks ago?
They should. I mean, you were embarrassed by them.
Correct.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah,
so
I wouldn't. I'd be more worried about, the turnovers in the fourth quarter, right? The offense going one way for the first three quarters, then going a different way in the fourth quarter.
Correct. But
Hero ball, lack of ball movement, lack of cutting.
But I think that's agnostic of the opponent.
Finchy's favorite
that's
term,
happening
sticky. The ball gets sticky, right? Those are things I would worry about. I wouldn't necessarily worry about mindset. How are they going to be thinking heading into that first-round playoff series? Because they are the 1 or the 2 seed. So they're just thinking, oh, layup, right? We're the 1 or we're the 2. No problem. We have home court. Like, hey, we'll just, sleepwalk into the second round. No, I wouldn't worry about that. It would be the other stuff I laid out.
How far do you think they can go? It's tough to go against Jim Peterson.
I think they can win the West.
Okay.
I mean, I think the Celtics are the clear-cut best team in the NBA. To me, Boston is winning the championship. But yeah, I think they're good enough. I really do, because I think the defense is so far above everybody else. That matters. That matters so much. Now, hey, I get it. Right now, where are they offensive rating-wise? 17, 18? They're bottom half.
They're in the middle
of the league. I mean, they're not top 15, so they're second half. So, I mean, that concerns me enough. Heck, I was over at practice on Monday. Mike Conley and Finch and Kyle Anderson, I mean, they were laying out a lot of the offensive issues. So it's something they're working on, right? But I still worry when you've got Ann and Kat, does it turn into a lot of hero ball? But I think they're capable. I really do. But I'm telling you, it'll come down to matchups. Like, could the pathway potentially be Golden State into the Clippers? Then you avoid Denver in the Western Conference Finals. So maybe Western Conference Finals is OKC or maybe Phoenix. Now, hey, I get it. Like, the Wolves played Denver really well last year. They annihilated Denver in November. So I get it if you're saying, Dukes, what are you talking about? Like, the Wolves match up fine with Denver. Denver would still worry me. They really would. So is there a way to avoid Denver? Like, somebody else knocks out Denver? And I get it. That's a slippery slope if we're talking about Phoenix potentially in the Western Conference Finals. Plus, I just laid out Clippers in the second round. I just don't know if the Clippers have a great matchup for Kat. Like, I think Kat could dominate a series against the Clippers. But, hey, the Clippers could win a few games, right? And then the Clippers could easily win 4 and eliminate the Wolves. But I'm just saying, to me, can you find a pathway to avoiding the Nuggets / Pelicans / sort of Lakers, although the Wolves do match up well with the Lakers.
And I still
think Mavs a little bit.
I still think a team like Denver, who, by the way, is not going to limp into the playoffs, they're also very, very good. Until they're beat because they won the NBA championship last year and obviously won the West, I think you just kind of have to assume that they're going to be the major player foe that you're going to have to get past, or somebody is going to have to knock them off so you don't have to.
Agree, although different team, right? I mean, no Bruce Brown, no Jeff Green. I mean, they're not quite the same team.
But they got the Joker.
As last year, they do. They do. I'm just telling you. I mean, I'm paying attention enough to Denver because my guy Ryan Saunders is on the staff out there. You're asking me how far can the Wolves go? I'm saying win the West. But I think part of that story then would be finding a way to not play Denver, that somebody else knocks out Denver.
Couple of quick random questions for you. One is just a random Wolves question. On Flair and Howells, we do random Wolf of the Week once a week, where we just I throw out clues to Phil Mackey, Kyle Teige. They guess who the random Wolf of the Week is.
All right, so you want me to guess? Hey, I don't think he's very random. He's my guy, but I bonded over the weekend with Troy Hudson.
Okay, and when he's
coaches
coaching.
The Hopkins 6th grade A team, so we were all in Rochester for a youth basketball tournament last weekend. So, I say bonded, I mean we, intersected in the hotel lobby. But I told Troy, as soon as I get through the madness of March, I want to put together a TV story. 20-year anniversary. Think about spring of 2004, 20 years ago. KG, Troy, right? That run to the Western Conference Finals. So I told Troy, hey, I need to track you down for an on-camera interview sometime in the next few weeks. Troy is an A-plus dude.
I thought it was going to be...
And his son, by the way, his 6th grade son.
Yeah. Good basketball player.
That's an understatement.
I thought you were going to do a story on the 20-year anniversary of The Stress of Both Worlds. Wasn't that his album?
I think it was, yes.
No, I was going to ask you, Random Wolf of the Week is only random from, I got you.
It's very good.
Random Wolf of the Week is only random in a sense that I'm literally just picking a player at random.
Yeah.
I have an algorithm, and it basically gets me to a Wolves player from the all-time roster. Okay.
All right.
So one of them, do you remember Shane Heel?
Of course I remember Shane Heel.
So
from Australia.
Shane came on the pod last week.
I saw that.
It was a riot.
Mm-hmm.
He had great stories to tell. Also, he just had really good insight. And I know you got to talk with Flip a lot. I think you're pretty good buddies with Flip.
Mm-hmm.
He even talked just very quickly about it just kind of always seemed inevitable that there would be a Marbury and Garnett breakup just because of the two types of personalities that they were. Was that, again, I was younger, but Dukes, I don't remember it being that way the entire run. I did know his final half a season here, whatever it was, that it was pretty evident there were issues. Were there always issues behind the scenes?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, short answer is no. I mean,
okay. And I mean, he didn't
heck,
say
if that happened today,
he didn't say that there were either. I'm not putting words in his mouth. He was just saying you could see because of the two types of personalities, it was going to be tough for them to coexist.
Back then, based on the way the rules were set up, that the Wolves were limited in what they could pay Marbury
Correct.
based on what they paid KG. Think about it. Today, those rules are gone.
Yeah, you can basically pay, three guys that same amount of money or similar?
Is, if we could take 26 years ago, 27 years ago, and bring it to today, they'd be holding hands singing Kumbaya, right? Because the Wolves would give Marbury a max deal.
And we'd already have an NBA Finals championship.
I mean, heck, to this day, Gary Trent Sr., who also, by the way, coaches a sixth grade basketball team.
Yes, he does.
Well, yeah, kind of does. I don't need to get into all that. But anyway, Gary Trent Sr. to this day swears to me if they had remained completely healthy 20 years ago, he's convinced. Now he's biased, right? But he's convinced they would have won the championship.
Well, what's the Gugliotta told this story a while back to Dan Barrero when he was on. This is a couple years ago. I think Gugliotta and Steph were at like an all-star game or they were playing each other. So one of the first times they were playing each other, and Steph was just kind of sitting in like the first couple rows while they were doing shoot around, and Gugliotta was playing for somebody else. He probably was with the Suns. I think that's where he went. And he walked over and he just sat down by Steph, and they both just kind of said, boy, we kind of screwed this thing up, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
And Gugliotta openly talked about that, where they all kind of realized, what we had in Minnesota, we probably could have just made that work versus all going our separate ways.
But like that 04 team, right, with Spree and Cassell and Hoiberg and Troy and KG is the leader and Trenton Hassel and Irvin Johnson, like they were good enough. Yeah, they were the 1 seed. They were the 1. It was Kobe and Shaq.
Did they beat Detroit?
Well, that's what Gary swears to me, that not only did they beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, now again, it was Kobe and Shaq. Are we sure? Like fully healthy, are we sure you were beating Kobe and Shaq? But Gary thinks they would have, right, if Sam doesn't get hurt. And wasn't Fred, or no, Fred was on the ball. So Troy was hurt. There were multiple injuries. Sam was the big one.
Well, and we're missing another guard injury because by game 5, Kevin Garnett was bringing the ball up all the time.
Well, Hoiberg was on the ball a bunch.
Anyways, but...
Right, so... But I don't remember Fred getting hurt. But yeah, I mean, they had injuries. The big one being Sam Cassell and how exactly he got hurt. Remember
Flip told us. The big balls dance.
Correct.
Do you believe that?
Great stories.
It's got to be true. Flip said it's got to be true, right? It's got to be true. It's got to be true.
I don't think it helped matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's
I don't know. Do they also then beat Detroit? I'm dubious. I'm not even sure they beat the Lakers.
But
I'm just telling you, Gary swears, and he'll tell you to this day, right? And I'm telling you, like, of course, right? Like, what's he going to say? No, we would have lost. But, like, he's adamant. Every time I see him, like, we would have won the championship in 04 if we had stayed healthy.
I'll say this. On the Timberwolves, you mentioned, you think they could win the West? I would love to see one of our Minnesota. I want them to win a championship, but I would love to just see a team in a championship game or championship series. And if they lose, okay, so be it. At least you had that fun little ride. My question off of that, I've always struggled with this in all sports, Doogie, especially football, because you only have to play a couple games, especially now if you're the number 1 seed. You don't have to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl. Is winning your conference, yes, getting to the championship game is an accomplishment, but do we overvalue winning a conference? Like, because the ultimate goal is to win the actual championship. So do we... I don't know. Like, I think baseball, I've always thought, yeah, winning the American League or winning the National League, that does feel like an accomplishment to me. You had to play 200 games to do that. NFL, NBA, NHL.
I think it depends,
Hockey
Russ.
is a bit more random.
I think we need
I don't know.
to go case by case, more context. Like the Twins winning a playoff series, heck, winning a playoff game after losing 18 consecutive games.
Fair point.
But winning a series, beating Toronto, right? It was just 2 quick games, right? But that's the definition of that first-round series in the baseball playoffs. Winning that series, advancing in the playoffs for the first time at that point, so 2002, 2023, 21 years. I can do the math, right? Call me Will Hunting, call me John Nash. So 21 years, right? When you win a playoff series for the first time in 21 years, that matters, right? Like, to me, the bar doesn't always need to be championship or bust. Does that make sense?
I actually do agree with that, which is kind of why it's weird that I would ask that question.
But sure, like when the Buffalo Bills go to 4 straight Super Bowls, at some point you're like, okay,
yeah,
winning the AFC isn't enough. Like, you got to win that last game.
Boy, where was I? I don't even remember where I was gonna take this now. I had a thought in my head.
But, like, to
and
me,
it
you need to
completely
celebrate accomplishments like that.
Well, okay. Do you celebrate
Maybe just
it?
doing this long enough, I have a greater appreciation being around a lot of these guys, especially away from whether it's the rink or the court or the field. Just the amount of work they put in behind the scenes that 99.9% of fans never have an idea of.
We only see the games in the pregame routine. We don't see the hours of stuff
just
they're
one of
doing
many
before
examples,
games.
but I'm over at North Star Training, baseball training in Burnsville, back in early December. Jake Irvin, Washington Nationals starting pitcher from Bloomington. I wish people could have seen the workout that he went through on this Tuesday morning in December. 5 hours, grueling. And I'm like, Jake, what exactly are you doing? Like, maybe ramp things up after Christmas or after the first of the year. You know, a couple weeks, and then you head down to spring training. You've got 5-6 weeks in Florida before you open the season, late March. Like, really? Do you need to really be grinding in early December to get ready for your first start on April 2nd or April 3rd? That really matters? Use spring training to ramp up. Right? Get your work in down in Florida. And he's like, I have to. Like, if I stop, like, I get so far behind. He cut short a trip to Cabo. A friend of his got married in Cabo because he is so married in the offseason to his specific trainer and how this trainer knows his body better than anyone that he's like, no, I wasn't going to stay in Cabo 3 extra days and have my trainer send me what to do. Like, I'd get behind. I need him to motivate me. So he's like, he went to Cabo for 36 hours for a wedding. And I'm like, if you're flying to Cabo, like, soak it up. Be down there for at least a handful of days. And he flew back 36 hours later so he wouldn't miss a workout. In early December, the Nationals just reported for spring training. Like, why are you going that hard in early December when the season begins on March 28th? But that's the way these guys are wired. So you see stuff like that, and I'm telling you, I have a greater appreciation for it doesn't need to be championship or bust.
I don't know why he's going that hardcore on the workouts, but I can tell you how he's doing it, Doogie. He's more than likely fueled by Beans Coffee Company.
Yeah, well.
Just crushing the coffee. What is that coffee mug, by the way? What do you got there? Is that...
I've got one son.
Oh.
After he was born.
Cute.
I've got the other son after he was born.
Look at you.
Yes.
Look at you.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this mug means a lot to me.
Beans Coffee Company. The promo code is Sports Chat. Don't forget that. You'll save some money at checkout. They ship on all orders for free, $35 or more. You You can order by the bag. You can set up a coffee subscription. I love that Profectus blend and that Macado. But go to coffeebybeans.com. You'll see all their blends, all the varieties. You'll find something you're looking for. And we all know how important that cup of coffee is, whether you're drinking it in the morning all day long or you need that pick-me-up in the afternoon or evening. Beans Coffee Company, they will help you out with that. Coffeebybeans.com. Promo code SPORTSCHAT. Doogie, 2 sports quick hitters. Then I'm going to give you 5 random questions, and we'll call it good.
We're not talking Vikings?
No, we're going to get there. They're one of the quick hitters. Do you want to do Vikings or go for football first?
Let's do go for football.
Okay,
When's day 1 of spring practice?
Well, when's the spring game so I can plan my travel plans? So you're giving me crap.
You're assuming there's going to be a spring game.
There never is anymore. What's going to derail it this year? I'm going with an oil spill or locusts. Something derails it.
How about
every
a typhoon?
Ebola. Let's hope it's not that. Okay, go for football.
Yeah.
If they could have made the money work, PJ was gone. Right? The more I've heard 2 different things. I've heard absolutely he would have taken it. I've also heard he had no interest. When you hear no interest, at first I kind of took that face value. But then when you hear no interest, no, obviously there's going to at least be some interest. So the no interest, as Doogie would say, journalism 101. Why is this person lying to me? UCLA just made all the sense in the world. It would have been awful timing for the Gophers. But if they could have made the money work, and if they had the money, he was rowing the boat down to SoCal, wasn't he?
So UCLA used a search firm.
They talked.
They did. The search firm contacted, yes. The search firm had PJ on its radar. I think in the end, UCLA hired the guy that they really, really wanted.
Okay.
I think they got their guy, number
that's
1.
Fair. That's fair.
But was PJ part of that process? Yes. I do think there's enough truth that PJ wasn't necessarily yearning to head to Southern California.
Okay. And that's fair, too. I mean,
him and Mark Coyle, I can't stress this enough. Like, that synergy, that matters.
Sure.
And would he have that at UCLA? And I get it. It's UCLA, right? We all think glamour job. That is not a good football job.
Well,
it's not a good job at all.
That's been my argument, Doogie, that you can make a case at this point in where we are. Minnesota and UCLA are pretty similar jobs.
They are similar jobs.
Yeah, and you can make the case. You can do the old bean count, right? You can put a bean on this side for something that UCLA has. You can put something on this side for something that Minnesota has. And at the end, the beans are probably going to be pretty similar.
They might be. Now, you could make a case. You go to UCLA to reset the clock, right? You go to UCLA.
Correct.
You're guaranteed, minimum 4 to 5 years?
He's a victim of his own success here. Just to a degree, Glenn Mason was.
As we sit here today, are we positive that if PJ wants to be the Gophers coach in 2029, that he will be?
No, but that's 5 years from now.
Sure, but I'm saying you go to UCLA, to me, you're guaranteed 5 years.
Yep, fair.
Are you guaranteed 5 more years here?
No.
I don't think so. Now, I think he's good enough to always win 6, 7-ish games. Are you really going to do better than that here with the current infrastructure, especially the landscape of college football? I mean, the separation of haves and have-nots.
Well, and that's, Doogie, to what you just got to. That, to me, is why he's going to have to jump at some point. And I say this as somebody who, I always tell people I'm PJ agnostic, but I lean more towards liking him than... I would never dislike him, but I lean more towards I want him here than I don't want him here. But at some point, if you're only winning 6, 7 games every year, the well will dry up of universities looking at you. So when somebody like a UCLA is looking at you, you kind of have to look at that and go, well, yeah, restart that clock, get out of the cold. I know now I learned the family's moved a bit. The kids are in a different place. Is that true? I thought the kids were out in Michigan. Turns out they're in
St.
Missouri
Louis
now.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think they've been there for a bit.
I'll tell you this, Doogie, when you're talking about the team on the field, if our boy Max Brosmer gets injured, and I don't even know if he's going to be any good, but if he gets injured, they're screwed. They got nobody that's going to be ready to play. Now, maybe somebody will surprise you, but when you look at the quarterbacks of the program, it's all redshirt freshmen, true freshmen, and then Brosmer.
Now,
so you
the
better
Lindsey
keep him
kid,
healthy.
I hear good things, but I get it. True freshman, I understand. If Brosmer goes down, you're screwed. But can't you say that about most schools? Now, hey, Illinois has found a chance, right? The last, or was it just last year? He went to the backup quarterback. It doesn't matter. I mean, there are examples you can cite, but more often than not, a Minnesota-type program, your starting quarterback goes down, you're probably screwed. I've heard a lot of good things about Brosmer. I had a really nice conversation with him a few weeks ago, but, Quincy Avery, this quarterback whisperer trainer down in Atlanta who trains Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields and Deshaun Watson and Josh Dobbs and some other NFL guys. He's worked with Brosmer going back to when Brosmer was like 7th or 8th grade. And Quincy didn't have to return my call, do a Zoom call with me, right? I mean, if he didn't have a healthy opinion of the kid, but he was spewing so much positivity about Max. And I'll tell you what, just talking with him, and even more so off camera than on camera, like, kid gets it. Kid's got a great personality, did not come across as robotic whatsoever. Like, I can see him being a pretty darn good leader. And, I mean, he can make every throw that you need him to make. Super, super smart. Look at his educational background. There's enough there to like. Now, hey, that schedule.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it's tough. But
the home schedule's
they got some guys,
too.
Like Ursary, he's a top 3 NFL draft pick. Top 3 round, not top 3.
Yeah, got it.
The
Top
first
3 round.
But
the aggregators are coming for you.
Ariante Ursary, the Gophers left tackle. To me, he's a Thursday or Friday draft pick. Taylor is stud at running back. The fact that they kept Daniel Jackson, that to me is the head scratcher. Like, if you're Daniel Jackson, like, I think you got a chance to play at the next level. You sure you want to be staying here?
You know why
to really maximize your draft potential?
You know why they kept him, Doogie? Because you drank so much Grey Duck beer and parlor burgers. There was so much money in the coffer. That's how they kept him.
Here's what I need to see to truly believe. Quincy Avery was trying to sell me on the Gophers are changing their offense.
Okay.
Now, we thought that a year ago.
I'd love to see it.
Right? I need to see it, right? That they're not going to run the ball 60% of the time. He's convinced they are going to throw the ball a ton more with Max. I truly need to see it to believe it.
I don't mind running the ball 60% of the time if you're picking up massive yards and gashing people.
Well,
it's when you're running it 60% of the time and you're going 3 and out and punting.
Ibrahim, I understood it. It was the formula for winning games, right? I didn't have a problem with it. It's not like easy on the eyes, but I understood it from PJ Fleck's standpoint. But now that you have Brosmer, now, hey, Taylor needs to touch the ball a lot, right? But utilize him in the pass game. But I'm just telling you, Quincy was trying to sell me on the Gophers are about to open this thing up a lot more. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm hearing you, but I need to really, truly see it. Then I'll believe it. Let's have another conversation in late September.
On the Minnesota Vikings, Doogie, I think their offseason's off to a good start, and I mean that this way. I think it's off to a good start because I don't think anybody has any idea what the hell they're going to try and do. I don't think anybody knows if Kirk Cousins is coming back or not.
I don't think they know.
Exactly, and that's what I mean.
So how are we supposed to know if they don't know?
But in a weird way, I think that to a degree can play to their benefit when you're trying to... When you get to the draft, it's a little bit different because you'll know if Cousins is gone or not. But I think in a weird way, that uncertainty can help you in some ways, and maybe it will, but they don't know if Cousins is going to be back. I think I've heard other people that are far smarter than me say this. Because the salary cap's going up, maybe that even hurts your chances of getting Danielle Hunter back because somebody else can now offer him even more money. And oh, by the way, now there's the Vikings could possibly be open to trading Justin Jefferson. Then Kwesi says, no, we're not. But again, who's really telling the truth? That's the beauty, right? There's a lot happening here. This is fun.
I remember Rick Spielman one day saying we're not trading Stephon Diggs, and then next thing you know, they trade Stephon Diggs. Now, in the case of Kwesi, I take him at face value.
Okay.
And I said this Tuesday morning on SKOR North. And I've mentioned this even way before Tuesday, but the two sides were so close to a contract agreement on Saturday, September 9th,
That's
the
day
before that opener against Tampa. The Vikings in that moment were willing to make him minimum the highest paid receiver in the game, right? There were multiple Vikings officials, Ross, that were convinced the deal was getting done. If you had spoken to them at noon on Saturday, September 9th, they would have told you, yeah, we're getting this thing done. Ultimately, it didn't get done. I understand that. But that's how close the two sides were. They're going to get a deal done. I firmly believe that.
I hope so.
That Justin Jefferson isn't going anywhere.
Independent of who the quarterback is, I think for his next contract, it's better for the Minnesota Vikings for him to be here than not be here. Even if you don't have Kirk Cousins next year, you don't have Danielle Hunter, and you might not win a lot of games next year, it's still better for the franchise to have him on the roster. On the Cousins front, where are you? Do your thoughts continue to change by the day? Do you still have a belief of what will happen? I know KOC said yesterday at the Combine, I don't have the quote directly in front of me, but he basically said, I think we'll work something out. But again, that could just be hope. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. But also, he's going to know more than the average duck on that because he's heavily connected to the head coach and the quarterback. So what do you think will happen with Mr. Kirk Cousins?
I have waffled a little bit, but have been pretty steady for a while saying, heck, even going back 6 to 9 to 12 months, that the Vikings have this price point. I don't know what that price point is, but that the Vikings are not going to exceed that price point, which also includes guarantees. And hey, what does that look like for guarantees beyond 2024? So let's say the 2025 season. How much money are the Vikings willing to guarantee? Certainly they would want some sort of out if he tears his other Achilles, right? There's enough evidence out there, right? Once you tear one Achilles, right, aren't you that much more susceptible to tearing your other Achilles, right? We're talking about him turning 36 in October, right? So you need to have some sort of injury protection. Wherever he signs, there's going to be injury protection in the contract, right? If he tears his Achilles again in 2024, like you can't be on the hook for a bunch of money in 2025, right? So every team will have some sort of injury protection in their offer. But like I've waffled the last handful of weeks. Like I was convinced the morning of October 30th. So the Vikings, Cousins plays brilliantly. The Vikings win at Lambeau on Sunday, October 29th. But at the end of that game, he tears his Achilles. I was pretty adamant, like on the Monday after and moving on, October, November, December into January. Hey, the Vikings' chances of retaining Kirk Cousins are that much better because he tore his Achilles versus if he kept rolling. Like think about the game against the Niners or even the game against the Packers, right? He was so good that some team was going to blow him out of the water, but that money's not going to be there anymore because of the Achilles injury at his age. Here's where I'm waffling, though. So I thought that, late October, 30th, 31st, into November, into December, into January, heck, even into February a little bit. Now as we're getting closer, all it takes is one team. That I do think there is a team out there that is going to blow the Vikings offer out of the water. So then it comes down to, is he willing to take some sort of team-friendly deal? How much does he truly love it here? I believe he loves it here. But he's also somebody, Ross, that has found a way to maximize his earning potential. And I just don't see why that would all of a sudden stop. And so I don't know who that team is. Does Atlanta trade for Justin Fields? I mean, Atlanta's going to do something, but does Atlanta trade for Justin Fields? Or is Atlanta's number one target Kirk Cousins? I firmly believe Atlanta has Cousins on their radar, but, what do they do? Some scuttlebutt about Denver. What does Denver do? Perhaps Las Vegas. All it takes is one team, right? That the money is going to be out there. And it's not going to be the Vikings willing to pay him this boatload of money. So if he does come back, it's going to be under the Vikings' terms.
Well, and I think they set that precedent last year with pretty much every aging veteran that was on the roster where they basically told them, you can take this amount of money.
Sure. Jordan Hicks,
Yep.
Harrison Smith,
or we'll
take the cut or you're gone.
Or we'll release you. They did the same thing with Dalvin Cook. I know there were other players too. Mm-hmm. It does seem like Kirk Cousins is going to have to decide, do I take the Vikings offer, which of course will be a good offer, life-changing money for basically everybody else, but it could be as simple as what you laid out, Doogie. Oh, but over the course of the contract and the guarantees, I'm just going to say Atlanta, I can go to Atlanta and make $40 million more guaranteed. Well, maybe I have to do that. But then maybe he would also say, well, I've also made a couple $100 million. Maybe I don't have to do that. It seems like ultimately, even though the Vikings could ultimately up their offer and do more if they wanted to, it seems like ultimately it's going to come down to him.
I think it will come down to him.
If he wants to take the pay cut, he can do it.
Correct. But think about Atlanta. So they hire Zach Robinson from the Sean McVay coaching tree as their OC. You think about the weapons. You think about Atlanta's offensive line. Solid. Not quite Detroit's, but good offensive line. Right? As good as the Vikings, if not better than the Vikings. Right? You've got the weapons down there. Plus, the landscape of the NFC South compared to the landscape of the NFC North for the next couple of years.
Still gets to play indoors, too.
Indoors.
He's good indoors.
Right? Wife's family's from down there. You're that much closer to your folks in Florida. Right? I mean, I think Atlanta, I can make a compelling case for the Atlanta Falcons. Really, for the next 2 years, even if Cousins is back and you're signing Jefferson to a long-term deal, on Daniil, I've said it for a while, Ross, I think he's going to take the richest offer, whether that's Jacksonville, Chicago, someone else. And I have a hard time believing it's the Vikings. And I'm positive, by the way, he loves it here. And Brian Flores loves him. But he didn't cash out his last contract.
That's it.
This is it.
He's playing catch-up.
I just have a hard time believing it's going to be the Vikings that are going to make him the richest offer. To me, it's comparable to Dalvin Tomlinson last year. Remember, the Vikings pushed back the void date. They were hopeful to bring back Dalvin. They certainly had some talks. Guess what? Cleveland's offer blew the Vikings' offer out of the water. Dalvin Tomlinson moves on to the Cleveland Browns. But the Vikings did want to retain Dalvin Tomlinson. So, they do want to retain Daniil Hunter, but I have a hard time believing the Vikings make him the biggest money offer. So, I see him gone, but, look at the next 2 years. Detroit, Chicago, Green Bay. What is the Vikings' pathway to making the playoffs, to ultimately winning the Super Bowl? What does that look like compared to Atlanta's chances, hypothetically? Or if you want to use one of the other examples. Now, hey, if we're talking Denver or Las Vegas, best of luck now with Jim Harbaugh coaching the Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Best of luck in the AFC West. But I'm just saying Atlanta specifically, wouldn't you take your chances in Atlanta before you take your chances here?
Well, and people always say, and I've been one of those people, if he wants to make it work and win a Super Bowl, he should take the pay cut and stay here. It's also possible, to your point, Doogie, he could take more money and be closer to a Super Bowl somewhere else, to your point. I don't know.
He's got the hammer, though. That's the bottom line. Yes, this isn't the Vikings controlling the situation. This is absolutely Kirk Cousins controlling the situation.
Before we close with 5 filler questions, go deep into your notebook of scoops. Your biggest Minnesota myth scoop. Go.
You know what? I did hear.
Do you have one?
Yeah,
of course
I do.
One.
Of
course you have one.
This is how funny that is. I forget his name, Tolly. He's the former Hopkins varsity football coach. So Hopkins recently underwent a coaching change. In fact, to bring this full circle with Gopher football talk, Brian Cupido, former Gophers quarterback, is going to be helping out. He'll be on the staff. I don't believe he's going to be the head coach at Hopkins, but that's great. In fact, I got to catch up with Coop.
Is he back in the area then? Because for a while he was in Madtown.
His daughter is an all-world basketball player.
Okay,
at
good
Hopkins,
for him.
by the way. And so she's going to play Division I. It's just a matter of where she plays Division I, but she's a Division I player. Then he's got a son that's an incredible athlete, basketball, football.
Good for him.
So, yeah.
He did an interview with me on the now defunct SKOR North Gophers show about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
From the airport in Fargo.
Why is it defunct?
Well, we haven't done it for 5 years.
Well, you're too busy creating all these 207 episodes of this marvelous podcast. But anyway,
what's the scoop?
The scoop is the former head coach is going to end up helping out Ricky Foggy. So I don't know what the role is. And Tolly, I don't know if that's a nickname. I should know his name.
It might be on the website. When you go to their website,
my older son,
they have...
I don't know where he gets the athleticism from. It's not from me. I'm not sure it's from my wife. But he doesn't play football. He may. I mean, he turns 13 here in a couple weeks. So right now he's 12, right? So to me, you can always, if you're a good athlete, you can always pick up football later. But he's baseball, basketball. So I'm not paying as much attention in our school district of the football happenings. But I did hear that rumbling that the former coach who Hopkins hasn't won a game in 3 years. So it's easy to see why they made a coaching change. Just hasn't gone well, although a lot of the good athletes at Hopkins don't play football, unfortunately. So his hands are tied behind his back in many ways. But anyway, I did hear that he, nicknamed Tolly, we follow each other on Twitter, too. I should know his full name. Anyway, I had heard that he was helping out Ricky Foggy with the myth.
Here's my Minnesota myth scoop. They open the season in early May. They'll be playing at Target Center. Tickets are on sale. I have looked, and I can tell you, Doogie, they are currently readily available.
Okay.
And I think slightly overpriced.
So a better chance of landing a myth ticket than a Caitlin Clark Iowa Minnesota ticket tonight?
1,000%.
Got it. All right.
1,000%.
Taylor Swift or myth?
Or myth. You're going to the myth.
Right.
And not that myth in Maplewood.
What about Ross Brendel as PA announcher? Or a little play-by-play?
Doogie, if you know somebody, I have reached out.
I know Lee.
Yeah, well, give Lee my. I have reached out
That's
to
Lee's
their
wife. That's the big boss. But
I have reached
Lee.
out to their general inbox twice, and I haven't heard back.
Right.
So
I'll give you a phone number later.
I'd love to help them out in some way, shape, or form. I'm always looking for a little cash, and it would be fun.
I know you are. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, let's close.
Right.
Let's
Give
close.
it to me.
Let's close with this.
5 filler questions. Number 1.
Yes or no on the Shamrock Shake at McDonald's?
I haven't had a Shamrock Shake in years. That might just be diet related because I am a fan. Thumbs up on the Shamrock Shake, but I bet the last time I had one might have been COVID year. We may have to go back to March of 2020. I bet it's been years since I've had one.
I allow myself no more than 2 a year. Last year, I didn't even have 1. So I think this year it means I can have 4. I won't do that. I'm going to have it.
Now, did somebody tell me, are they now mixing in Oreos with the Shamrock Shake?
Well, I think you can get that at...
Or can you get that anyway?
That's like Culver's will do that. And I know Dairy Queen has a mint Oreo blizzard, which is good.
But specifically McDonald's, I thought...
Well, maybe they are.
There's some variation.
I don't know.
But anyway, the traditional Shamrock Shake, thumbs up. I just haven't had one in a while.
Number 2.
I brought up Shane Heal's name earlier. Off the top of your head, I don't even need a story. Most obscure Minnesota Timberwolf of all time is who?
Gundars Vetra.
I don't even know who that is.
Exactly.
What year? Early 90s?
Google it.
Okay.
Google it real quick, because I also think of Stoico Vrankovic.
I can't because I can't spell Gundars.
And Rasho Nesterovic.
Vatra.
Although Rasho could play. Stoico could play too. But the beautiful thing about Stoico was, I don't know if it was like a pack, but the amount of cigarettes he smoked before games, then performed at a pretty darn high level. So darn impressive. So Stoico Vrankovic. But yeah, Google Gundars Vetra. Gundars. In fact, I can do it. Here we go. Right?
I told you we would make this podcast quick, and we're pushing an hour.
I know, but I told you I was good time-wise. I would have told you if I wasn't.
All right, good. I appreciate
Gundars Vetra.
Vetra. Was this the classic draft him in the second round, stash him, comes over 5 years later?
He's now 56 years old.
So this was really early.
Latvia.
Okay.
All right. Well, you said obscure.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it.
All right.
That's why it's the question.
He played for the Timberwolves for one season, the 92-93 season.
Okay, I remember it not so well.
So how about that? That's as random as it gets. His career stats. You ready?
Yes, please.
He was here for one season, so the 92-93 season.
Can I guess since you're laughing? I'm going to go with like 0.7 points, like less than a point a game.
Didn't start one game. Only played in 13 games all year, right? So they play 82. He played in 13.
How about less than a point a game and like 1.2 rebounds? This sounds like
6.8 minutes per game.
This sounds like a tall guy who could rebound, maybe.
Points per game, 3.5.
Okay, good for him.
Bad.
Good for him.
All right. How about this, though? Look at his 3-point percentage. Look at that.
Wow, almost 50%.
No.
What's that?
1,000.
I looked at the wrong
He didn't miss a three.
Well, how many did he shoot?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. He did not miss a three-pointer in his NBA career. We're talking like one three-pointer, maybe?
Dukes,
the other obscure one, by the way. Go ahead.
He was ahead of his time being that good at three-pointers.
Let me see his basketball reference page. The other one, the great story is Trevor Winter, right? With his son now, Nolan, at Wisconsin. But Trevor's one of my guys. Ran into him at the airport a few months ago. Caught up with him in the Delta Club.
Does he know his son will never get a job in this town?
Oh, he'll be okay. Trust me. Nolan will be plenty fine. Yeah, how about this? Gundars Vetra.
Did you find how many threes he shot before we go to question number 3?
0.2? Would that be then just 2 overall? Maybe I'm not John Nash and Will Hunting.
It's okay. We'll get Declan on it. Declan can look it up for us.
Is there a game log? Hold on, I got it. Game logs. Here we go. I mean, remember, there's only 13. All right. Here we go. All right. 3 for 3.
Whoa, look at him.
Yeah, so he made his first NBA three-pointer March 18th, 1993, in a loss at Charlotte. Then the next night, he was on fire. Next night, it was a back-to-back. The Wolves play in Atlanta. So they go from at Charlotte to at Atlanta. Another game they lose by a lot of points. So they lost at Charlotte by 28. The next night, they lose at Atlanta by 18. He ends up shooting 2 3-pointers in that game. Made them both. Gundars Vetra. But Trevor Winter, I believe, only made an appearance in one game. So Gundars can say he played 13 games, right? Even if it was garbage time, but he got in 13 NBA games. Trevor Winter, for his entire NBA career, by the way. So obscure Wolf, but he didn't play in the NBA anywhere else. He played in like one game for like 1 minute.
I also remember being excited when I saw the Wolves had Trevor Winter because you remember,
yeah.
You know, the Final Four run. That did happen, even if the NCAA tries telling us that it didn't.
Number 3.
All right, but yeah, Gundars Vetra.
Underrated Minnesota vacation getaway. You doing traveling in Minnesota? Where do you like to go?
North Shore. I mean, I don't know if that's underrated.
Yeah, okay.
But love the North Shore. You know what? I was in Rochester last weekend. There's a lot of restaurant options. There's a good amount to do. And if you want to drive just 30 minutes.
Breweries all over in Rochester.
Yeah, big fan of Rochester. But yeah, North Shore. I mean, you can't go wrong, North Shore.
Canadian Honker in Rochester near Mayo.
Okay.
Nice little restaurant.
Number 4.
Worst office mate, Joe Schmidt, Chris Long, or Alec Osmus? Who's the worst? I'm going to get you in trouble here, and I'm going to clip it and send it to him.
Oh, please do. Alec is so low maintenance, so it's not Alec. So we're down to Joe and Chris. I guess pick the day.
Okay.
It depends, right? Joe can be so locked in, and Joe's got so much other stuff going on, right? Especially right now with the book with Joe Mauer, right? That Joe is laser focused sometimes on other stuff. So, like, he's so laser focused that, you know, we'll engage, but it's not like we're going back and forth for hours.
Sure.
Right? Chris, like, he's got the gift of gab, right?
Yep.
So there will be times where, like, I'm trying to work on something, and Chris is just yap, 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 right? So maybe it's Chris, but still one of my favorite people.
No, he's a good dude. That was solely me just trying to get you in trouble. Here we go. Final one.
Number 5.
Favorite vulgar word to utter when somebody makes you angry on the road. You don't have to say it. You can just intimate. When somebody cuts me off, I have a word that I yell, and I won't repeat it here. Or
I don't know if there's a favorite.
What just makes you feel better when somebody does something? You're like, you bleep.
I mean, sometimes it's DIPSHIT.
Okay.
Right? Other times it's the A word. Other times it's MFer. Right? So, I mean, it varies. It really, truly depends. I've tried to keep my road rage under control. There's just so many ludicrous stories out there.
Yes, there's been awful stories.
Just dumb, you know what happening. And it's like, I don't need to risk based on, you know, if somebody is in the left lane going 55, whatever, maybe I'll sort of ride there behind a little bit, but they're not going to speed up. I'm not going to honk. I'm not going to try to move over and cut them off, move back to the left lane.
Well,
like I don't need to be, you know, speaking of a-hole, I don't need to be that a-hole.
Correct. And you also need to set an example for the youth because you're driving around a couple of, I didn't know what I was going to say. You're driving around.
Youth.
A couple of youth.
Yeah, I mean, pretty quick here, a teenager, but yeah, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. So, yeah, they're in the car plenty.
You're molding the future.
I'd be lying also, Ross, if I told you that I've never uttered something in their presence, right? So they've seen me maybe blow a gasket from time to time with a little bit of road rage, but, you know, I'm not, you know, flicking anybody off. I'm not cutting anybody off. I'm not doing anything too drastic.
Kids doing good, though?
Kids are good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the older one enjoys school, but... You know, whatever. He goes, right? To me, he's going through the motions, but whatever. As long as we can turn him into, you know, street smart. You know, if the book smart comes at some point, great. But as long as he's got some street smart about him and, you know, treats people the way that, you know, he wants to be treated. And
he'll figure out what he wants to do. He's a kind
young man, right? He's got a big heart. So that, to me, is what matters most. And he's got a bunch of friends and he's active in sports, basketball, baseball. The 9-year-old, he's a rebel, right? Like, I think he's going to be a stand-up comic. Like, he's hilarious.
Sweet.
Plays sports, but more for social aspect, not like truly competitive. The 7th grader is uber competitive.
Speaking of,
needs to play everything at the highest level, and like loses, isn't quite crying, but it's more frustration. Like,
And
He'll start screaming. Some of those
did that come from
expletives.
you? That competitive side to a degree?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah.
We're recording this on Wednesday and closing, Doogie. I'm sure you saw this. Richard Lewis passed away today on the comedian side. So
in fact, I thought
it's a bit of a bummer.
Was it 2 episodes ago, or was it the season premiere?
Yeah, they talk about who's going to die
Who's going to die first?
Yeah. Sad.
Oh,
Sad.
God. Yeah, but I mean, he announced like a year ago, 2 years ago, Parkinson's.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we kind of knew it was coming. It still was a shocker when I saw the headline today. But yeah, rest in peace, Richard Lewis.
Dukes, you're the best. You gave me a half an hour more than I thought you
got
would.
it, Ross.
And I
Love
don't
you.
mean that negatively, but thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it.
If somebody survived all the way through this entire podcast, hey, God love you.
Name that wolf again. What was the guy's name?
Gundar's Veteran.
Yeah, somebody listening goes, hey, I remember that guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't. I'll fully admit that. That's Darren Doogie
I'm
Wolfson
showing my age, Ross. Love you. See ya.
from Channel 5 KSTP, SKOR North, the Scoop podcast. You see them all over the place. I'm Ross Brendel saying thank you so much for listening. Use that promo code SPORTSCHAT at coffeebybeans.com. Do not forget to do that. Subscribe on YouTube, rate and review kindly. I'm back again real soon.
Thanks for listening to Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by Beans Coffee Company. Use the promo code SPORTSCHAT. That's one word, Sports Chat, to save at checkout. Follow Ross on X at @TheRossBrendel. Like and subscribe to Minnesota Sports Chat wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review kindly.